A senior member of the British government has admitted that his government is breaking the law in relation to Israel and its genocidal onslaught against the people of Gaza. That is the most important detail to emerge in the transparent attempt by Wes Streeting, the ultra-Blairite Health Secretary, to overthrow the fatally wounded, politically speaking, Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, a quick bit of context. Morgan McSweeney, supposedly Starmer's chief of staff, in reality, he was running the show, was forced to resign over the appointment of Peter Mandelson, close friend of late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who was McSweeney's mentor and secretly had huge influence over the whole government. Now, as part of the inquiry into this shit show, ministers are obliged to hand over their correspondence with Mandelson. The government's forced into that position, and that will be made public. So Wes Streeting has released his text messages and WhatsApps with Mandelson in advance and published a Guardian column about it. This column's quite something. Wait till I get to it. Supposedly, the aim is to rebut smears about his association with Mandelson, but it is very obvious what he is doing. He's been running a secret leadership campaign for months. He's seeking to overthrow the Prime Minister, and he knows his association with Mandelson is a massive weakness. So he's trying to neutralise that. And he's also clearly thinking these messages will help him curry favour with what remains of the Labour membership. Now, before we get on to his confession about the government and Gaza, it's an inadvertent confession. It is a confession, though. In March 2025, so 11 months ago, Streeting suggests that Peter Mandelson, then US ambassador, hires Starmer's former director of communications, Matthew Doyle, and Mandelson asks why he was forced out. Streeting says, God knows. This is a whole separate topic as well, by the way, about Matthew Doyle, who's been elevated to the House of Lords. We'll talk about it another time. In this particular exchange, Mandelson says the government's problems do not stem from comms, and Streeting says, quite. I mean, what they're saying there is obviously Keir Starmer is a terrible Prime Minister. Right? I mean, obviously everyone knows that. They're saying it's not about how they're communicating. It's fundamental to the government. I mean, you know, any sentient human being could work that one out. Then Streeting goes on to say he's in big trouble in his constituency and that he's toast at the next election, his words, noting Labour lost their safest ward in the London borough of Redbridge and that he doesn't think the party will hold either of the two Ilford seats. Streeting represents Ilford North. Now, the last election, where Streeting came so close to losing his seat, and he had no idea, by the way, in advance whatsoever, that he was in danger. In 2019, when Labour suffered a terrible national defeat, Streeting had a majority of 5,000 in his constituency. This time, his majority collapsed to just 528 votes. Why? Because he was nearly defeated by 23-year-old British Palestinian Liam Mohammed, a phenomenal result by an independent candidate taking on one of the most important figures in the Labour Party. And Wes Streeting is absolutely right. Not a phrase I'm accustomed to uttering. He is toast. And Liam Mohammed is going to do the toasting whenever the next election happens. Now, Streeting then says there isn't a clear answer to the question, why Labour? And Mandelson bemoans the lack of an economic philosophy, which is then followed through in a programme of policies. And Streeting says there's no growth strategy at all. Now, I mean, they're right, by the way. There isn't a clear answer to the why Labour question. But what do we honestly think would be the answer to Streeting? He's even more naturally right-wing than Starmer is. He would just double down on the same problems. He's actually just a more ideological, version of the problems. When Labour was in opposition, Wes Streeting told his colleagues, every day we should drag a sacred cow of our party to the town marketplace and slaughter it until we are up to our knees in blood. Lovely, charming stuff. Who speaks like this? It's a recurring theme of mine. I know that. But why do these people speak like such massive raging weirdos? Normal people don't speak like this. It's because partly they think that they're in a kind of political thriller. They've got main character syndrome, and they think they're, in this kind of a political drama where they're one of the big, towering, dramatic figures. So he would have imagined himself saying it like this. Every day, we should drag a sacred cow of our party to the town market square and slaughter it until we're up to our knees in blood. Over to you, Keir. And then that's like the end, credits roll. That's what's going on in their head. It's that banal. What he meant in practice is literally abandoning Labour's principles, indeed defining the party against its natural principles and adopting Tory ideas. That's what Mandelson champions too. As we know from the Epstein emails, he literally encouraged bankers to threaten Gordon Brown's government, which he served in, to try and stop it from introducing a tax on bankers' bonuses being introduced after the financial crash. Both of them support a Labour Party which is neutralised as a threat to wealth and power. That's what drove their visceral opposition to Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. But guess what? They got their wish. The Labour Party adopted the worldview and agenda that they wanted. What they're actually bemoaning is the fact that Starmer's adopted that worldview and it hasn't worked. It's gone down like a cup of sick. So now they're looking for excuses. That's what's happening. But then let's come on to what Streeting said in private to Mandelson. I'm sure this will come up in coming days, so wanted to check in with you on recognition of Palestine and the domestic politics of it. Keir's statement today was excellent, but Macron's statement tonight ups the ante. That's when the French president backs the recognition of Palestine. Morally and politically, I think we need to join France. Morally, because Israel is committing war crimes before our eyes. Their government talks the language of ethnic cleansing, and I have met with our own medics out there who describe the most chilling and distressing scenes of calculated brutality against women and children. Politically, a Commons vote will be engineered in September on recognition, and we will lose it if we're not ahead of it. There are no circumstances in which people like me or Shabana, that means Shabana Mahmood, who's now the Home Secretary, could abstain or vote against, for example. Conference will be a sea of Palestinian flags and the moderates will be waving them. We need to be leading the charge on this. The alternative is being dragged there with enormous damage to Keir, the government and party. I've never been a shrinking rider on Israel. I've supported LFI for over 20 years. Our sister party, Haaretz, that's the Israeli newspaper, and progressives are clear about what's being done in their name and they oppose it. Just quickly, I'm sorry, Labour's sister party in Israel does not actually. It supported the genocide. I just want to get, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I appreciate these things are always more complicated than they appear to those of us who aren't up close as you are. And I also appreciate how much Keir and David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, are giving to this personally. But it is what it is. We need to lead, not follow. Mandelson then claims such a gesture could blow a two-state solution out the water if Israel responds with further West Bank annexation and an unspecified reform of the Palestinian Authority. He was just talking there about just Israel can blackmail them into doing what they want. And Streeting says Israel's doing it anyway. That is actually obviously correct. The West Bank's been de facto annexed anyway. I mean, it's just a really important point to make this. You know, he talks about further West Bank annexation. In practice, the West Bank has been annexed. They haven't annexed it entirely because it would just mean in practice admitting that they are what they are, which is an apartheid state, because they won't be able to pretend they weren't an apartheid state if the West Bank was under their legal control, because the 3 million Palestinians there would not have citizenship. They're not going to do that because then they would massively increase the number of Palestinians who live within Israel's borders. Anyway, Streeting says Israel is doing it anyway, as I've said, which is true. And then says this is rogue state behaviour. Let them pay the price as pariahs with sanctions applied to the state, not just a few ministers. But then Streeting refers to risk and considerations Streeting is weighing up that aren't necessarily obvious to the rest of us. A few things here. As Streeting notes, he's been a supporter of the pro-Israel lobbying group, Labour Friends for Israel, for 2 decades, which is not something to boast about. They are an organisation which lobbies for the interests of an apartheid state and a genocidal state. They have no role in politics whatsoever. Now, I do not believe for 1 second that he would be talking like this without the pressure that has been put on him by Liam Mohammed and his own constituents. And by the fact, by his own admission, he is toast at the next election, not least because of this issue, British complicity in genocide. Now, when he says regarding a parliamentary vote on the recognition of Palestine, there are no circumstances in which people like me or Shabana Mahmood could abstain or vote against, for example, what he's clearly saying, in my view, is that MPs in seats where anger over Palestine is high can't afford to vote against the recognition of Palestine because they would be, in his own words, previously there, toast. He doesn't deserve any plaudits here, Wes Streeting. Every single politician knows that Israel is committing war crimes. The ones who publicly claim Israel isn't are just lying about it. They simply believe Israel has the right to commit war crimes in a end justifies the means sort of way, and they don't really consider Palestinians to be human beings. It's as simple as that. Loads of politicians are privately saying Israel is committing war crimes, and they've said it for a long time. They're not saying it publicly. It's the same with so many of my colleagues, so many journalists. It's so easy, isn't it? It's so easy to be courageous in private. It's so easy to tell the truth when so few are listening. It's so easy to say what is obviously happening when there are no consequences. But politicians and journalists who spoke up about Israel's war crimes and called them such in public have been sacked, their careers damaged, they've been monstered, they've been marginalised. Streeting says Israel is committing war crimes before our eyes. That is, he is saying it is transparently obvious that Israel is committing war crimes. What he's saying is there is no need to do any special investigation or research, that there doesn't need to be a criminal court to establish that. There needs to be a criminal court for justice, but there doesn't need to be a court to establish a fact. He's saying you just need your eyes, because it is so transparently obvious that Israel is committing war crimes. Now, he also notes that medics have spoken to him about calculated brutality against women and children. Well, I've spoken to those medics too, including on this channel. Let me spell out what he means. He means that Israeli soldiers have deliberately targeted women and children. That Israeli soldiers have deliberately maimed women and children. That Israeli soldiers have deliberately murdered women and children. In other words, he is saying correctly in private that Israel is committing the most obscene war crimes imaginable. But he didn't state what he regards as an obvious and undeniable fact in public, did he? And do you know why he didn't? Not simply because he was undoubtedly rationally fearful of the consequences for his career. It's because there is a legal obligation on the British government in which he serves as a senior member not to provide weapons to states which are committing war crimes. The British government continues to supply crucial components for Israel's F-35 jets, which have played a pivotal role in wiping Gaza from the face of the earth and slaughtering its people, yes, including the women and children that Wes Streeting refers to. Under the Export Control Act of 2002, the Export Control Order 2008, the Strategic Export Licensing Criteria, and the Arms Trade Treaty of 2014, the government is legally obliged to refuse or revoke licenses where there is a clear risk that the items might be used in the commission or facilitation of a serious violation of international humanitarian law. And that includes components for fighter jets, including the crucial components for F-35 jets, which this government allows to be exported to Israel to murder Palestinians. Wes Streeting is therefore willingly serving in a government which, on the basis of what he has concluded, is breaking the law and helping Israel to facilitate war crimes. He knows Israel is committing war crimes, and therefore he has to know that providing components for F-35 jets which are used to commit war crimes is helping to facilitate war crimes. There is no getting out of that. And yes, Streeting is also privately correct that sanctions should be applied to Israel as a state, rather than doing what his government has done, which is to appoint token sanctions to a few ministers who can be portrayed somehow as the real extremists. Like, unlike, for example, Benjamin Netanyahu, it's like, these are the extremists, and then there's, somehow separate from Benjamin Netanyahu, we're going after the bogeymen. Netanyahu is the prime minister who's personally subject to an arrest warrant on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity, because he's in charge of the genocide. Again, so easy to tell the truth in private, isn't it? So easy to observe what's really going on when nobody else can hear apart from the other individual or individuals in the private conversation, which is not to be disclosed in public, except when it's too late. We say silence is complicity for a reason. What we mean is that it's not just those who actively participate in crimes and loudly cheer on the crimes who are responsible. It is those in positions of power who know crimes are being committed, but choose not to speak out and act on those crimes. They are also responsible, not least if they are in a government which is helping that state to commit crimes. It is also striking Streeting believed that recognising Palestine was the appropriate response to this. That's the specific issue he was focusing on. When I visited Palestine last September, Palestinians were damning about this, by the way. They described it as 2 decades too late and a substitute for meaningful action. They said it was for domestic consumption. It was just to try and satisfy people at home rather than actually take or focus on the actual action needed against Israel. Now, Streeting wanted recognition of Palestine because he wanted to push back on the pressure he'd come under from constituents because he thinks he's going to lose his seat, which he is. As for the Guardian column he wrote, headlined, "Ignore the smears. I was never a close friend of Peter Mandelson and I fully understand the lessons we must learn." Yeah, well, to coin a phrase, I did not have friendly relations with that man, Mr. Mandelson. Sorry about the American accent there. That was awful. It's fascinating, isn't it, how Streeting recently deleted tweets fawning over Mandelson going back years, isn't it? Why did he do that? If he's all about being all transparent and all the rest of it. I mean, it's because now he's doing this, look, here's my messages. But, I mean, you're not screaming transparent if you're trying to hide your association going back years by deleting tweets. Close friend is obviously the sort of term you can make intentionally difficult to define and impossible to kind of nail down what it actually means. But before all of this, there was no doubt at all, in my mind, that Streeting would have referred to Mandelson as a friend and an ally and an inspiration. The messages between the two were full of affection and kisses. In the piece, he says he won't wash his hands of his actual association with Mandelson, that they saw each other for dinner on average once a year in a group setting. He didn't say in what timescale that was. As The Guardian has reported, he would, in the Corbyn era, regularly meet up along with others, along with Peter Mandelson, to plot to take over the Labour Party, and in the early period of Starmer's leadership. So I don't know what he means by, we saw each other on average once a year. In what time frame is he talking about? I mean, obviously, Peter Mandelson was in the United States. Now, the basic fact is, when Streeting was affectionately corresponding with Peter Mandelson, he knew that Peter Mandelson was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein because it was in the public domain. I went on BBC Radio 2 in December 2024 when Mandelson was appointed ambassador and specifically spoke about his association with Jeffrey Epstein as the reason he should not have that job. I wasn't doing it as a sleuth. It wasn't something like a load of investigative journalism. Just got it off like a news article on the internet because it was in the public domain. There was a Credit Suisse report which was revealed in 2023, which made clear the specific close friendship between Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson and Prince Andrew. It's just being gaslit, as if, I'm just a writer and a journalist. I can just go and Google these people at the top of the British government. And what was supposed to think they didn't really know what was going on with people they know for years. Bullshitting all of us, They're just they are taking the piss out of you. They think you're stupid. They think you're thick. That's what they think. To return to the point about where Streeting in his text about Gaza, as those of us who actually spoke out have said all the way through, everybody knew. Everybody knew. Everybody in a position of power and influence knew what was going on. There were no excuses. There are no excuses. There could not have been more evidence, and the perpetrators of this genocide openly boasted over and over again about what they were doing. As this cabinet minister admits the government broke the law and assisted war crimes, inadvertently admitted, but he has in practice admitted it, we must make sure they do not get away with it. Please like and subscribe. Do help us take on the pro-genocide media, which has just whitewashed all of this, supported it, legitimised it. This whole disaster, this whole catastrophe, this joint enterprise between our media and our government in plunging Gaza and the people of Palestine into blood and chaos. Unforgivable. Help us take on and challenge the media consensus generally on everything at patreon.com/ownjones84. I keep saying I'm finishing my book, The Fall of the West, soon finished, and that will be out in October, and we will focus far more on the channel then. But you've kept it all going, so thank you. We've, still reaching millions of people, despite it sort of bubbling away. Well, that's done. We're going up to Gorton and Denton on Sunday to cover the by-election, which will be fascinating. That's all thanks to you again, those documentaries we do, and there'll be much more of those documentaries to come. But yeah, share, like, subscribe, leave your comments. I'll speak to you in a bit.